I have this concept, no, this obsession, about being the most interesting man in the room. I've been making goals for myself since 2017, going into 2018. And after I blew the pants off of that first year, I've been pretty stoked about doing it ever since. As corny as it sounds, it has motivated me to do some incredible things. And I've been building this body of man that I've become. This body of me, this essence of myself. Somewhere over the years and between all the goals, I looked back at my life and just realized how interesting I am. I've written 6 novels, built my own home, and created my own cartoon, met up with online friends, thoroughly enjoyed the arts, and have just generally had an excellent run at this life. And there's still so much ahead of me. And as I sit here in corporate America with executives, doctors, and other highly educated hotheads, but here I am, a lowly, uneducated, lost, and undeserving dummy, sitting among the ranks of these absolute mountains of men. Before I know it, I'm sitting here in my own head, worried about the vote that'll kick me out of this ship like the imposter I truly am. By this point in my career, I was a manager already and making 6 figures. In my mind, at least for the most part, I felt like I was doing pretty good. I was making the big boy money, which was something I was sure I would only dream of ever having made. But still, there in that moment, my whole mind and confidence was dumped into the garbage and derailed into permanent state of self-doubt and imposter syndrome. And why is that? Any other day, for weeks on at a time, we can feel pretty good about ourselves, and then all it takes is one good board meeting to toss all that into a horde of brain-crazed zombies. Now, we have strong enough minds to pull ourselves up and out of the thick of this misery, but it's a long and deflating process. It'll take at least a week to get our minds back to where they need to be. But there's some real bad bouts of imposter syndrome that'll drag us down for entire months at a time. And that is unspeakably devastating, to have been in a healthy mind, doing stuff, getting stuff done, and setting up for your success, only to be derailed by some stupid thing. I use the example of the boardroom meeting for me, as it was something that used to really drain on the old noggin. But there are so many triggers out there that'll make us feel as though we're realizing our own incompetence all over again. A sour first date, a failed job interview, a rocky switch to a new life choice, overly competitive peers and friends, the crushing pressures of modern society, our own darned perfectionism, and so much more. These bouts of inadequacy, worst of all, will derail our productivity to the point in which when our minds do come back around, we're so far behind on what we were working on that we give up on it and move on to the next new thing that we'll dive into only until our next inevitable downfall. And that's the cycle we need to break. Our minds are already strong enough to pull us from the depths of our own thoughts of inadequacy. So now we just need to level up our minds to build an immunity to the cursed mindset altogether. My immediate reaction to this feeling in that moment, in that boardroom, was just to do better, get better, and keep up. The easy, popular, and very stoic thing to do. Truth be told, these ideologies pummeled my brains into so much mush. It was a worse effect than the aforementioned bouts of imposter syndrome, worse than accepting my own inadequacies and hiding behind them, and worse yet than being stuck in a game of classic zombies without any juggernaut. I doubled down on these ideas. I was a classically raised man, which I do not regret, but in that moment, in the face of inadequacy, I rose to that challenge. I took it head on, and it beat my sorry ass to hell and back. I would take my work home, spend several hours at home studying up on our job or just doing my work, in order to keep up with everything and give off the facade of confidence because, hey, look at me, all of my work is done. And whatever time I spent not working, I was studying up on my field so that I might appear to know as much as the other brains in the boardroom. It was a rough couple of months, and it plunged me into the deepest depression and feeling of inadequacy that I've ever felt to this day. You see, my peers did buy into it, at least as far as I knew they were buying into it. I was opening up in boardrooms, I was spouting the internet facts that I'd memorized, and I had one of the cleanest work records of the bunch. But even though my peers seemed convinced by my act, my mind knew better. And my mind wasn't going to let me get away with all that crap. After all, learning is more than just memorizing and spouting back arbitrary facts. Learning is, true learning is, to understand things and to form one's own thoughts and opinions about said things. And although I could keep up with the Joneses here in the boardroom, there was no keeping up with the speedy hedgehog that my mind had become and how it ran away with my very thoughts. I'd accomplished what I was after. My peers treated me like I was one of them. I seemed to be similarly qualified as they were. So then, why didn't my damn brain let me be happy? Damn it. It's because no one sees through you better than you do. And your brain knows that if your knowledge set was tested in a real, practical sense, then you'd fail. Because beneath the surface of memorized knowledge is just air. You've blown up a balloon to surround the same lack of information that was there when we started down this path. It's kind of funny because I didn't realize it as depression at the time, but looking back at it, I can recognize the instant that depression started. I was in a low-stakes training meeting at work. None of the executives and doctors that I had broken my back to impress were going to be in that meeting, so I could finally uncompress, right? Everyone here was just going to be my peers. There was no pressure to overcome myself here, right? Wrong. Instead of embracing the unwind, I locked in with the overconfident facade I'd groomed for myself. Because after all, in a room full of my peers, I could conduct myself as awesome as a doctor or executive, as awesome as I'd learned to fake over these last few months. Then I myself could be the revered individual in this space, the one that others will break their backs to impress. So I went full send on them losers. And by the end of things, there was only one loser in that room, and you guessed it, it was me. You see, I threw my over-bloated weight around that meeting like some kind of smurf. So much so that when we broke off into a team exercise, the instructor had to force some poor soul to work with me. But that wouldn't stop me. I was the man of this room, and I was gonna own it all, just like those other guys did. But finally, my bubble did burst, and I was humbled by some stranger in that room that knew more about whatever thing I was pretending to know everything about in that moment. They rather politely put me in my place in regards to my wrongful spouts, and I more or less sat down the rest of that meeting. Most would think me too embarrassed to engage in formal conversation, but the reality was that I was too deep in my own head to do or think about much else. That simple act of humbling served as a catalyst for me to realize just what the heck I was doing. I was being this obnoxious version of myself just to give off the impression that I was somehow more awesome than anyone else in that room. And what a foolish waste of time that had been. And worse yet was the realization that I still didn't really know anything. And that's what plunged me into the darkest depression. I had no motivation to do anything. I succumbed to my assumptions of my own inadequacies. My imposter syndrome had successfully labeled me an imposter, and it was all downhill from there. I returned to work after that meeting, an empty, meaningless shell. No motivation to do anything. I got home and continued on in my motivationless state, binging TV and an unhealthy amount of junk food and video games. 3 days blurred into one, and I still didn't fully realize the slump I'd been in, but I had at least caught on to my lack of motivation. You gotta remember to surround yourself with good bros, as it was a good old bro of mine that had finally dragged me out of that pit. It was a routine gaming session, now 7 days into my depression, and I can remember describing to my bro what I'd been going through. He stopped our entire gaming session right then and there, and was suddenly very concerned for me. He was basically like, yeah, what you're describing sounds like depression, bro. And I know you, if you're not out there cranking that soldier boy, then there's something wrong. He was seriously concerned for me, and his concern made me realize that I should be more concerned for myself as well. And for the first time in that 7-day stretch, I realized that this was something worse than just a general lack of motivation. And it was all thanks to that bro of mine. So again, remember to surround yourself with a strong bro pack. But most of all, remember to pay it forward and be that bro for as many people as you can. Be that bro that cares, the bro that pulls other people out of the wreckage. It took some deep introspection, an additional 7 days to pull myself out of that pit. But I had to make some ugly realizations about myself in order to do so. Ugly and difficult realizations to come to understand. But I realized that although it mattered to me what these people think, I needed to make a conscious effort to not let that affect me. Your mind will jump to conclusions, and we can't control that. It's some sort of passive ability of ours that never really helps us out but is always just there. We can, however, control how we react to our mind's assumptions. This is actually how most of us avoid prejudice. Most of us see something and our mind will make some horrible assumption about that something, but it's our ability to not act on the initial thoughts or not believe those thoughts that help us overcome these issues. It's harder for some than it is for others, and it's why a lot of these less than awesome thoughts still exist today. But if we can be aware of the thoughts our minds are projecting on us and actively act against those thoughts, then we beat the horrible feelings and become such a better version of ourselves. We'll have such a great self-understanding too. Cue the Most Interesting Man game. It's a game I play. You can call it MIM for all of my acronymers out there. I've made it my goal to be the most interesting man in any room that I enter. Not the smartest, not the hardest working, and not even the most dashing, but I am the most interesting. And maybe you play this game with something else. Maybe you're not the most interesting, but you have to be confident that you are the most something in that room. Whenever feelings of inadequacy or imposter syndrome kick in, I start up a game of MIM. I start to measure up my competition. You see, I have done my fair share of interesting things. As I noted so very confidently in the opening of this video, I wrote a book in 9 days, while working 65 hours between 2 jobs, building my own house on weekends, and still squeezing in fun times with the bros. There it is. That hook from the beginning is coming back around finally. But yes, that story is my ace in the Most Interesting Man game. How many people in this room have done something even remotely as interesting as that? None. I guarantee it. But how do I know? You perceive it. It's just the same as how they'll perceive your lack of experience in their field. You're going to perceive their lack of interestingness. You'll find that after measuring up all these people in this way, that you can finally lay back and be comfortable with yourself in this meeting. Because a comfortable man is a confident man. I'll say it one more again. A comfortable man is a confident man. Think back on all your previous situations where someone had made you question your confidence. Is the person who directly made you uncomfortable the one blowing all their thoughts all over the room like the blast from a thunder gun? Or is it the comfortable, confident guy who sits in his chair, understands the room, and contributes every time he opens his mouth? I'm betting it's the comfortable guy, and if it isn't, then you can click off right here and kill my retention. But by measuring up these people and convincing myself that none of them are more interesting than I'm able to now find a level of comfort in this space, because I know that no matter how smart, hardworking, or confident these guys are, none of them are more interesting than me. None of them have written a 72,643 word novel over the course of 9 days, whilst working 65 hours between 2 jobs and building a house. And it is that realization that gives me comfort, and that comfort that gives me confidence. In conclusion, to wrap up my Sharknado of thoughts here, it's less about the actual confidence and more about your comfort level. If you allow yourself to be uncomfortable in any situation, then your confidence will wane. If you're trying to be confident in the face of an uncomfortable situation, then you'll only be acting confident at that point, and acting is just that. It's acting. Become comfortable with yourself first and foremost. Find that one feature that you value in yourself. For me, that's how interesting I feel my life and adventures have been. For you, it could be something totally different. But you've got to have something, and I know that you do. You just gotta look deep enough to find it. Once you've got that thing, turn it into a game. Measure up your competition and find them lacking. Be realistic, but have fun with it. I once allowed a board member to compete with my level of interestingness simply because he had a 4-star Dragon Ball pinned to his tie. I said to myself, this guy might be able to contend for the most interesting man in the room. And at some point in that meeting, when the time was appropriate, I asked him about that Dragon Ball pin. But again, it's about having fun with yourself and using that fun to build your comfort. And once you've become comfortable, you will become confident. This is a strategy that is so workable in so many different situations too. It does wonders in high-stakes interviews. I have more videos on my channel, my own animation here on YouTube, and my novels are available on Amazon. If you've enjoyed and/or found value in this video, then I'd be delighted if you checked out some of my other projects. Until then, go out there, get stuff done, and keep having some fun, bud.
Final score, 5-2-6.